guys, look at it. It's really good to see everybody. We're back to our regular schedule of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night Zoom Zoom fellowship.
A piece of toast and then put beans and cheese and jalapenos on.
There we go. And so we're back in action. We are excited tonight to have with us our dear friend Diana Ketterman. And Diana, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Diana just got back from an incredible journey to Israel with Pastor Paul Begely, who I know we all know who Pastor Paul Begely is, and Heidi. And so I kind of asked her to share a little bit about that and whatever else she wants to share on tonight. And we're going to keep the meeting to an hour this evening. Don't forget, you guys, Diana and Tracy Tennant are on tonight. They're both presenters in our Overcoming Deception on-demand conference, which is available. I put the link in all of your invites tonight. Tomorrow, there'll be a button on the website where you can access it there. But do avail yourself of that. It's 14 speakers and 2 bonus features in there. It's quite unique, So you get a chance, just go to the invite that I sent you, click the link, and get yourself signed up. So Diana, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let me do that. Okay, can everyone see it?
There you go.
Okay, so I put together some slides because I had a lot of requests to speak about my trip with the Begely Prophecy Tour. And so I'm going to show you some of those slides tonight. And if you have questions, if you can put them in the chat, or if you have things that I mentioned that you would like to know more about, let me know, because this trip, I was there for 2 full weeks, is just, it's like rabbit holes everywhere. And every rabbit hole could be a whole separate topic. So, but I had 2 incredible experiences happen to me there. And so I want to tell you a little bit about those experiences. But from the time that Pastor Begely said that he was going to go to Israel, I felt like that I really wanted to go on this trip. He said that God gave him a window of time that he should go before things, may change, and to the point where we wouldn't be able to go, or that this window of time was the time that God had designated that we should go during this time. And I felt that immediately in my spirit. I have been to Israel twice, but I felt like that if I wanted to go back, I really needed to get on board and go on this trip. And I don't know why, but I just felt like I needed to go on this trip. I had not been on any other trips or connected in any way to going with anything with the Begleys in any way. But I felt like that this was something I needed to do. And so I just felt compelled. I had been writing a new book. I'm an author and speaker and educator. I've been in education for 25 years, and I've worked for the federal government for 14 years. I have a side ministry in pastoral counseling, and now I have a ministry in Sound Mind Ministries and for podcasting. And so I do faith-based mental health. But anyway, I was writing this new book called Not of This World. And I wanted to do some research over in Israel on topics such as I wanted to focus on the forces of darkness. Now, I had been to Israel before, of course, focusing on where Jesus walked and all the things that Jesus did. And I still wanted to focus on that, but I also wanted to focus on this book because of the time we're living in is the spirit of Antichrist and the infiltration of the Antichrist spirit within the church and within our homes and our families. And of course, Israel is known as the cradle of Freemasonry. And so I wanted to go over there and research the beginnings of that and how they got that title and that type of thing. And so I thought, well, this is the perfect time to do it. So I'm going to jump on board and go with this trip. There were 57 of us on the trip um, when I got there, but actually I went 5 days early so that I could get some individual touring in of some sites that I wanted to do that wasn't on the tour, so that I could do some research and I could do some interviewing and speak with people over in Israel about some of the topics that I was going to write about in my book. And so I left early. I left 5 days early and had an individual tour set up with Avi Ben Yosef, who is John Hagee's personal tour guide. And I had met him my last trip in Israel, and I texted him. He and I were friends on Facebook, and I said, Avi, I'm coming over, but I want to go early. And there's some specific places that I want to see outside of this tour. And he said, well, I'll take you. And so I met up with Avi so that I could go to these particular places. And then I had also added to my agenda to go on to Petra for the second time. So it was a wonderful trip. I got to see like all the sites that I thought I was going to see, but then I got to see some things and had two unique experiences that I would have never even thought would have happened to me. So while I was there, my trip included by myself. I had one other person with me. This is before the Begleys got there, that I was going to go down to Eilat and go over to Petra from Eilat. And so you can see the mountains in the back here. Eilat's beautiful. It's by the Red Sea. And in the back, there's some red on the mountains. Well, that's because I came home and did the research, or after this incident happened to me, I did research that, this is the land of Edom. This is where Esau stayed. This is his property. So here I am going out, asking questions and doing research, to get about the forces of darkness. Of course, I figured there was going to be some kind of spiritual attack for me doing these types of things, but I didn't know to what extent, or, I didn't know what would happen, but I just knew I needed to ask some questions. And so I'm at my hotel and in Eilat, and I'm walking from behind these palm trees over to the Red Sea Observatory, and the arm of this big gate just fell right on top of my head and just hit me right on top of the head. And the other person that was with me heard it hit, and it made me stagger over, and I had to sit down, and they had to take me into the observatory, call the doctors in, get me on some pain medication, and I had ringing in my ears really loud. And when I had come into this resort to stay, it was nighttime, and so I didn't really see the area. And now here it was the next day, and I'm walking across, and this gate hits me in the head. And so as I was leaving that day in a taxi to go out of Eilat, I was in a roundabout. I went right down from the hotel, right down from where I got hit. And all of a sudden, I just looked up, and there was this whole pyramid, for the Masons, the Freemasons. And as you can see, it's the Freemason Center. It has the two Solomon pillars. And immediately I connected in my spirit, this is why I got hit. This is exactly what I'm researching, some of this that connects to the Antichrist spirit. And this is why I got hit. Well, later, when I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't want to take time out of my schedule to mess up with my time. So I just took the pain medication. I thought, well, I'll get home and I'll have a MRI or something. So I was diagnosed with a concussion, of course, and tinnitus. But, while after I met up with the Begleys, I had this bag that I carry on all of my trips. And it's like my shoulder bag. It has all my pockets in it. And I know where everything's at. And I had taken that bag with me to hear the Watchman in Dallas, Texas last year. And I empty it every time I come home, and then I put in my new stuff for my new trip. Well, while I was in, after got out of the lot and got back with the Begleys, I was standing in line. I'm digging in there for some cash, because sometimes I'll put cash down inside of the pockets. And all of a sudden, my fingers felt something, and here it was, the Paul Begely prayer cloth. And it was in that bag that I had on my shoulder when I got knocked in the head. Now, I don't know if that had anything to do with the protection, but it was kind of odd that the one thing that I brought in that bag that I didn't know was in that bag was stuck down in the side of a tiny pocket, was that prayer cloth that I got at the Hear the Watchman conference down in Dallas, Texas. But that was interesting. But then almost a week later, I was in Tiberias, and I was with the group at this time. And I had been sleeping very well throughout the trip, because we were run all day. And it's, long days, a lot of walking. We walk over 5 miles one day. And so you're sleeping at night. You're going to sleep because you're going to get up early and go somewhere else. But on February the 15th, which it would have been the 14th in the United States, I was laying in my bed in Tiberias, and I had a roommate. She was from Iowa, and she was asleep, and I woke up, and we had the balcony curtains open so that we could see out onto the Sea of Galilee. And when I opened my eyes, there was a blood moon, a crescent blood moon. And I had never seen a blood moon. And so I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't Pastor Begely say there's going to be a blood moon? Why didn't somebody tell me? I didn't hear about this. So I grabbed my phone, picked it up. So it was real quiet, not to wake her up. And I laid in the bed, and I started taking pictures from the bed through the window. And I thought, well, I need to go outside and get some good pictures. So I went out. I had just bought for this trip, and this is very unusual too, because I really wanted a camera, but I thought, well, I don't really need a camera for Israel, because I've been there twice. I'm going to do a lot of the same thing, and I don't really need to have a good camera. But I had gone out and bought a new S22 Android just for this trip, and it was $1,000 camera. And I thought, now I'm going to take a lot of pictures. So I was taking pictures everywhere. And I had just bought that phone, and it was only for a camera. There was nothing else added. It hadn't been anything else put on it. I just went to Best Buy, bought it off the counter, and I used it just as a camera. And so I went out on the balcony, took the pictures because it had 100 times zoom. And then you can see the first picture there of the hotel. I kind of took it sideways, and I thought, well, I'm going to get the water on it. So I immediately posted it to Facebook, and I said, it's in Israel. I woke up my balcony, and I saw this red moon. It's not supposed to be a blood moon, so I was wondering, why is it red? See the red reflections on the water beneath on the Sea of Galilee. And so then I went to sleep, and my alarm went off at 5:30 or 6 or whatever, and I woke up, and I immediately went out to find the moon, and it was white. And I thought, did I really see a blood moon? And so I looked, and yes, it was all those pictures were on my phone. And yes, I had seen it. And the first thing I do when I get up is I really try every morning to make sure the very first thing I do is fall to my knees and pray for that day. And so I fell to my knees, and the Lord said, I awaken you so that you could see my warning. This is a sign to my people. And then he gave me the Joel 2:31-32, about the sun turning into darkness, the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. And so I told my roommate, and I told a couple of the girls, but I really didn't tell a lot of people. And so we're sitting at lunch, and I tell this other lady, and she's like, you got to tell Pastor Paul about that. And I said, well, I don't know. He's not here. She said, well, I'm going to tell him if you don't tell him. So she went over and got brought Heidi over to our table. And Heidi said, well, they've had a lot of reports of strange blood moons from around the world. And I said, oh, okay, then it's not that big a deal. Well, I came down to dinner and there's Pastor Begely saying, oh, can I use your pictures? I want to do a show on this. And I said, sure. But then I didn't even think about the crescent part, being a part of the Islamic symbol, and then also as the occult symbol. But I'll show you just a little bit. I know we're pressed for time, and I want to make sure that I stay within the time frame. I'll show you just a couple minutes of his video, because you can get it on YouTube as well.
For some reason, it's not playing.
We can't hear the sound, Diana.
Okay. All right.
There's no audio.
Okay. I don't know why. Okay.
Welcome to Zoom land.
Maybe like change your microphone settings for video.
I'll tell you what, I'll send the link will be, is in you can Google it on YouTube. Sea of Galilee, Pastor Paul Begely, Blood Moon over the Sea of Galilee. Anyway, his went out and then it went to someone else. I know they had 70,000 hits. I've had calls or texts from Australia. I'm going to do a show on Saturday with somebody in Indiana, I think. And then I have 2 more shows after that. But several speaking engagements because of it. And so anyway, it was just a phenomenal thing that happened. And I've had a couple critics, and I said, well, it's a new phone. You can take it. Anybody can take my phone and see that you can revert to original. You can see the timestamps. The new technology, you can't really hide your footprints, if you want to. And I don't have any reason to make this up. I'm not going to walk around with I don't ever do a filter. I don't even know how to do them. But the Lord knows it happened. And I had some people say, well, why was it you? Millions of people there, bus after bus after bus. We did have another person on the trip that saw it, and they put it in the text in the chat that they also saw it. But I asked the Lord, why did you show this to me? And he said, because you've been bold and you've been standing up against the forces of darkness. And I knew that whatever I told you, you would stand up and say, and you wouldn't be afraid to stand up and say what the warning that I was given to you. So he gave me that scripture. But he also, when I came home, I started praying, Lord, what is it exactly that you want me to tell people, and, only 1% of the Jews know Jesus. And, as I've been investigating and researching, because before I even started to go on the Paul Begely tour, I sent an email.
Is there an organized? I mean, that's so unwise. You got to think there's an organized resistance to that. Do you think that could actually happen?
Do I hear?
Yeah, most of the resistance.
Ted Ellingston, please mute.
Disagrees with
Mike, can you please make sure everybody's muted? Thank you.
That are excluded from national meetings.
To get in there.
Okay. So before I even went on the Paul Begely or signed up for the Paul Begely tour, I had emailed Mount Carmel School of Ministry about being trained in how to witness and evangelize to the Jews, the Messianic Jews, to get more Messianic Jews, because I had talked to a couple of Jewish friends who never even heard of Messianic Jews. They had to go look it up. So I knew that there is a harvest field out there that we need to reach out to. And so the Lord told me, he said, the remnant, it says, I am the Lord will whoever calls on the name of the Lord in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem for deliverance to the Lord, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. So he's going to have a remnant in this last day. We know the 12 tribes, the 144,000 is going to come out of there, but there's a lot of Jews that's never heard of Jesus. Why? Because Isaiah 53 is in their Bible, but their rabbis do not teach it. They listen to what the rabbis tells them, but they don't read it themselves. It's kind of like the people who go to church who will listen, but they don't read the word themselves. So if the pastor just leaves it out, you don't know it's in there. Or if it's changed, you don't know the truth. And so a lot of the Jews have never heard Isaiah 53. And when they do hear it, they realize that is Jesus Christ. And so because of their religion, they have to go through their rabbi in order for interpretation. And so I know that this verse and this warning was to say we need to wake up and pray for the Jews. We need to start reaching out to evangelize. This is a whole field of ministry that we need to take part in. And then the other verse that I heard immediately was, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." And so I heard that time after time after time, every time I started praying about this. And so I realized that I looked it up, and it's in Deuteronomy, and it's also in Mark. So it's in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, this is my guide, Avi, the one that's John Hagee's personal guide. And we went to the Cave of the Patriarchs, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. And he said, "Diana, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to do this for you so you can see what I need to do as a Jew if I want to come in here and pray. So you have to bind your arm up, you have to put a scroll on your arm, and you have to put the scroll on top of your head." And that comes from Deuteronomy 6:8. Well, when he said that, that comes immediately to what the Lord had, the verse right underneath the verse the Lord had given me. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." See, they are doing it on the outward. But when you go to the New Testament, it's on the inward. It's all about what's in the heart. It's putting it on your heart. And so here is a Messianic Jew that I recently was watching his video, and he said, "I used to put all these leather straps on me," and he said, "but all I kept finding was feeling was guilt." He said, "And I was using Judaism as a kryptonite to keep Jesus away." And so you can see that this is a binding that just binds them up. And so it's very interesting that this verse that the Lord gave me was connected to exactly where commands them to do this. And so when we start looking at the three religions that are represented over there, you have the Christian, the Islamic, and the Jewish. And it related to this scripture as well. The very next day after the blood moon, there was an announcement, and somebody on the trip said it, and it was on the news, that the United Arabs, president was announcing this new Abrahamic family center that was opening to have a facility for all three of these religions. Now we know that Ishmael was Islam, and Isaac was Jewish. After Jacob is when the Christians came into play, the word Christian, and then Esau worshiped Baal. Esau also married the daughter of Ishmael, so that marries the Islamics with the Baal. You have those descendants that have those inheritance, those things that need to be broken off if they want to be grafted in. And so this is also ties into that, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God." And the last word he gave me was, "Take heed that no one deceives you." And so Matthew 24 is where that is. And we know that just reading through Matthew 24, there's so many things that's going on in the world right now to distract us and to deceive us, to think, to get our mind off of that there is one Lord and there is a remnant. And we need to be prepared to be that remnant and to evangelize in order to increase that remnant. So just reading through Matthew 24, many's going to come in my name. This guy's pictures all over Israel, at the airport, on every stop sign. It's a dead rabbi who died in New York, who lived in New York. He's buried in New York, but they say he's going to come back as the Messiah. We have food scarcity. We have pestilence. We have these are actual pictures of the war, of the machines and the army or the military machines over there. nation against nation. We have tribe against tribe, kingdom against kingdom. You have the West Bank against the Israel, and so you have all these things going on in the world. This is another Messiah that's over there that's actually doing miracles. My roommate got a call from her daughter and said, "Can you find that Messiah that's doing the miracles over there?" And then you have we have Jewish leaders now saying that 6 billion people need to die because they're worshiping somebody other than their God. This is the menorah. It's 1.2 tons, 2 billion in gold that they're ready to put in the third temple. You have Petra, where the Matthew 24 indicates that may be where they're going to flee to. You have the where the Battle of Armageddon is going to be fought. Megiddo. You have the new temple being built. All these things are going on. Everything around in the world is distracting us. There's so much going on. The news it rolls every day. And he's saying, do not be deceived and get your eyes and your mind on these things. Keep your eyes and your mind on me as one Lord, as one God, as the remnant. And so I watched John Howard, and he went over there a few weeks ago, and he went into the cave of the patriarchs, and this is in the West Bank in Hebron. And I told Avi, I said, I want to go to the cave of the patriarchs. He said, Dinah, I haven't been there in 3 years because of all of the uprising. He said, it's very dangerous to go in there. I said, well, John Holler just went there and I want to go. He said, well, okay, I'll do what I can do. And so he took his symbols off of his vehicle. And of course, we had to go through a checkpoint. We had to have our bags checked in the car, and they had to open all the doors, check out all the passengers, and get us through to get us into the cave of the patriarchs. This is where Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Leah, or Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah are buried. This is the place that Abraham bought for his family to be buried. And you can see right here, it says, the tomb of Patriarch Abraham. This is somebody praying there. It's a place where you can go pray, and you can go read the Jewish law and learn, and also pay a tribute to these 6 people. This building that sits over it was built by King Herod, and it's only one of the very few buildings left that's completely intact that King Herod built. And they know that he built it because his building blocks have a signature. Every block has a frame around them. And that means that if you see blocks over there with frames, that means King Herod, that's his signature. And so when we went in there was a side that had these Muslim people, and on the other side had the Jewish. And so I'm like, why do they have Muslim in here and the Jewish in here? And he said that's because they believe that this is Esau's head. And so this is part of the conflict, is they say that Esau's head is in here. You can see the crescent moon on there. There's the crescent moon. This is before I got the blood crescent moon. And so they say that, and also it says it in Jasher. Now, I had never read the book of Jasher. Even though the Bible refers to Jasher, I had never read it, even though it's not the inspired word of God, but it is referred to because there's some controversy on it. But I had a book of Jasher. When I came home, I read it. And it says in the book of Jasher that, Esau got his head cut off there. And that he was arguing with Jacob's family, that Joseph and his children, that their dad did not want him there, did not want his body in there. And that they said, well, I bought this. It was, you sold it. My dad bought it. It's all written down. And Joseph told his son to go get the documents. That's in Jasher. Go get the deed where it was written down that I own it. We own it. And so he sent one of his children off. And when he did, one of the children of Dan, the tribe of Dan, who was a deaf child, came up and cut Esau's head off. So it's in Jasher, it's in the Jewish Encyclopedia, it's in the Babylonian Talmud, and it's in the Midrash, which is the rabbi's interpretation. So all of these Hebrew people, the Arabs and the Muslims all believe that the head of Esau is in there. So there's a constant fight over this land. Now we know that in Genesis, Jacob and Esau, they had a time of reconciliation. At one time they were reconciled. Esau runs to meet him, embraces him, falls on his neck, kisses him, and weeps. And so we know that that's part of the Bible. But you got all these people who have all of these sayings, oral sayings, stories. He said, she said, the rabbi's decision, and they don't know Jesus. They don't know forgiveness. They don't know love. They don't know how to forgive and be a family. And so this guy right here that's putting the bans onto Avi, he said, we're going to have peace. We're going to have peace. And I said, well, how are we going to do that? He said, we're going to implement the Noahide laws. Well, I had already researched the Noahide laws. That was part of my research for my book. And so I said, oh, really? Well, I already knew them. So I started talking to him about that. And he was very confident that that's going to happen. And as you can see from this story right here, January 17th, this happened when I think John Haller was there, because while John was there was a lot of military vehicles on the street, and he had a very tough time just getting through to get in there. And so this is a constant ongoing place of contention. And, even today, you probably heard in the news that an American Israeli was killed. So what are the 7 laws of the Noahide laws? So there's 7 laws it's a universal law that the Jews have believed that was given to Noah for the whole world. And it's mainly to make the Gentiles righteous. And it is a part of implementation into the new temple that's being proposed. It has been adopted by the United States. Ronald Reagan adopted it in 1982, and he made it a part of the American Foundation in our laws. And in 1991, it was approved by both houses with George Bush signing it in Washington. And there is the number of the bill that passed. So these 7 laws are a part of the United States. Now, Jana Ben-Nun, Steve Ben-Nun's wife from Israeli News Live, just yesterday came out with this video of this rabbi saying 6 billion people deserve to die. 2 billion are Christians, and they don't have the right to live because they believe in JC, Jesus Christ, and they deserve the death penalty. So this is all tied to the Noahide laws. And Jana and Steve have been harping on this for a long time and saying, people in America just don't understand what it is they're supporting and who they're supporting. They're not really supporting the 1% of the Messianic Jews. They're supporting Jews who are listening to rabbis and listening to other people tell them things that's just not always the truth. Now, I wanted you to know that our United States Department of State website, and you can go to the U.S. Department of State website, type in defining anti-Semitism, and you will see that it says, using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, that is, the claims of Jews killing Jesus or the blood of Jesus, to characterize Israel or Israelis, that is one of the criteria that you're anti-Semitic. And that also falls under the Noahide laws. And, if you dig down into it, it's punishable by death. And you saw recently that Donald Trump is proposing to bring back the guillotine. It's all of this is coming together. It's part of the UN, the Sustainable Development. And again, look at Israeli News Live. They have a lot of this already documented, and do your own research. So yes, a big part of the controversy is this part that's in the yellow. Netanyahu is moving in settlements into the West Bank, and so the Muslims and the Arabs are fighting back. That they wanted to keep that, and you see what's in the West Bank is Bethlehem, parts of Jerusalem. The Temple Mount is especially an issue. We know that the Jordan president was here a couple of weeks ago to meet with Biden to say that he wanted Jordan to be in control of the Temple Mount because he's the 40th generation from Muhammad, and his great grandfather was killed on the Temple Mount. So he believes that it's his right, his family's right to own it. So currently, you have the Arabs, the Muslims who own the Temple Mount, but the Israelis who own the land that's on the Temple Mount. So that you have this constant conflict. So Netanyahu's taken a strong arm and he's moving people into that, but that's part of the problem. The other part is he's becoming really strict with these laws, which are tied to the Noahide laws. Now, some of them may sound good. They're, being against LGBTQ, and you can't go two sexes can't go to the same beach. And there's a lot of things like that written in there. But if you listen to Israeli News Live, you'll be able to see more about how those are tied directly to those laws. Out of those 7 laws, there's really only 2 that's in the Bible. But the biggest issue is that a Jew cannot be associated in any way by saying that they are a Christian, because if they do, they're going to be like Peter. Remember, Peter denied Christ. That's because it wasn't taboo to say that you were that you were a follower of Christ. And even now, if you are a Jew and you say that, you become an outcast. You become an idol worshiper. Gentiles are idol worshipers because they worship Jesus. And so they even give funerals as an outcast to their family who says that they worship Jesus. That's how bad it is. So this is all spiritual rejection. And with mental health background, Jeannie's mental health background, a lot of you have that. This is rejection. And out of a wounded heart, you have hatred, bitterness, jealousy, anger, murder, and so when you're rejected, when you're not the best, when you're not the favorite, when you're not chosen, you go into this state of denial to heal that. And you go into a distraction. I'm going to distract and put my energy, my effort into something else. And even to the point where they said, we'll have our own Bible. We'll have our own religion. We'll have our own God. We'll have Muhammad. We don't need you. And it becomes the spirit of Edom, where they're going to completely destroy you. And no, time does not heal all wounds. And we're 2,000 years later, and it's still over Abraham, 2,000 years, or before, even before that, what is it, 5,000 years? So it doesn't heal it. So what do they need? They need Jesus Christ. They need forgiveness. They need love. I listened to the testimony of this one Jewish lady that she was an English teacher, and somebody asked her to proofread their book. And she said, well, it's a Christian book. She said, well, I don't know anything about JC. I'm not allowed to say that, but I can proofread your book. Well, she became a Christian from proofreading that book. And so her Jewish friend said, what happened to you? She said, I'm now a Christian and I serve Jesus. And they said, we knew that you did because you changed, you love everybody. And see, we'll be known by our love. But see, we have all this hatred and this unforgiveness. And so this whole group of people, they need Jesus. We know we had Cain against Abel, his blood crying for vengeance. But we know Ishmael and Isaac did come back together at one point. They buried their father together. And we know that Jacob and Esau did come back together. They wept together. They were together after their incident. And we know that Joseph forgave his brothers and he was restored with his family. And only transformation can come through Jesus Christ. He is the Prince of Peace. That's the only way the peace of Jerusalem is going to come. That's what we need to pray for. And so we also went to tribe in the city of Dan. And this was one of the places, Dan was an apostate tribe. He went into Baal worship. It says that in 1 Kings 12:28. And this became a big center for Baal worship. And he is not listed in Revelations as being one of the 12 tribes. There's 144 Jews, 12,000 from each tribe, but Dan is not listed. Joseph's was split into two. And so therefore, Dan is separated. Dan has the symbol of the snake and the symbol of the eagle. And his blessing from his father said, you will judge your people. Well, Samson came out of there. He was a judge. There was a lot of judges that come out of there. And also he says, you will be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that bites the horse's heel so that the rider falls backwards. And so Dan is connected to three other things in the area that are all connected to the Antichrist and to the spirit of Esau, the spirit of Antichrist. So, and many people believe that these scriptures listed here state that the Antichrist will come from the tribe of Dan. He is connected to those who are in the Illuminati bloodline, the 13th satanic bloodline. He's tied to the British royalty. They believe that this bloodline that he's connected to, I don't know if I can say it right, Mervinigans, that they believe that they have both the holy blood of Jesus and the blood of Satan. And you can research this in Bloodlines of the Illuminati. The Rothschild family has this bloodline, and they are in total control of Israel. And Dan, the city of Dan, is located on the 33rd degree, which is an important number in Freemasonry. And it's a ley line. It's parallel to Mount Hermon. And Mount Hermon, this is a picture we drew there. It's also called Baal Hermon because Baal is what was worshipped in the city of Dan. It's a place of extreme spiritual significance. It's possibly where the fallen angels fell. They think possibly Jesus was transfigured there. It is 9,000 feet above sea level. It's owned by Israel and Syria. There's a ski resort up there. Maybe Mount Sinai was there. It is on the 33rd degree parallel, and that means that the ley lines are electromagnetic, and electromagnetic forces are associated with the occult. That's why you have the water witching and all those other things that are connected with the occult. Also, clear on top is the United Nations building or headquarters at the highest point. And it's like, they said it's like eyes on the nation because they can see, they have strategic warning systems that they can see from that point. So they have a Herman Hotel up there that's owned by the United Nations, which we know the United Nations is part of forming Israel, and there are the ones that was part of that with the Rothschilds. So you can see here Mount Hermon, Nimrod's fortress, the city of Dan, and Caesarea Philippi. Those four are all together right there, connected to things with the Antichrist. When we pulled into the Nimrod's fortress, this Hyrex was right above us on a post looking down. Kind of looked like a demon looking down. As soon as people were like, what is that thing? And so here are all the different courts of recognition in the Nimrod's fortress. It was a place where there was child sacrifice, bestiality, orgies, all kinds of occult things happen here. It's where Jesus said, Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against my church. And so this is called the gates of hell. Then you can see these little insets in the mountains. That's where they sacrifice to their gods. The last trip I was there, I was told that they would throw the aborted or the babies that they're sacrificing into the water below. Let's see if I can. Yeah, we don't have time to watch the little videos. This is Rothschild's own, the Caesarea by the Sea. I looked up today what it costs to stay in a hotel there is $40,000 a night. It is one of the most richest places there. And you can, their name is everywhere. It's on it's on everything there. And you can see this list here. They bought the Kesnet. They set that up. The Holocaust Museum, the Caesarea by the Sea. There's hotels, boulevards, United Nations. They have foundations in England. They're connected to the Oppenheimers, and of course the 13 bloodlines. And so there's many articles out there about how they control money. They are a Jewish banking family. They're the wealthiest family ever. They have strong ties to the Vatican Bank. In 1895, they bailed the United States out. They established the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and every American bank is now part of the Rothschild-owned Federal Reserve. They give themselves credit for creating Israel. And a lot of people believe that they engineered World War I, World War II, and that they're engineering World War III. And of course, the prime minister that was the founder in Israel, this sign was up in the Holocaust Museum that he doubts that whether anyone comparable to Baron Rothschild can be found throughout all the Jewish people. And like I said, I read in one article that they don't make any decisions in Israel without a Rothschild approving it. So this is the building of the third temple. We weren't allowed to take pictures in there, but this is off of the temple website. This is the menorah that will go into the third temple. They are preparing it, training people, education center. It's a full-blown administration. Getting every piece of this temple together. Now, this little bridge over here that goes up to this model temple, that just opened. And so I got to do the new bridge tour, which John Haller did too. And that's what alerted me to this tour. And this is the bridge where the people in the second temple would walk on this bridge to go into the second temple to worship. Well, they want to put the new temple there and have people walk on the same bridge or the same pathway. Well, the Temple Mount's there now. So we were joking about, well, how are they going to get the Temple Mount down? And then that earthquake happened. Well, maybe the earthquake will take it down. Well, lo and behold, it came out in the newspaper that the Temple Mount was cracked. So I don't know how it'll come down. Maybe it'll be war. Maybe it'll be an earthquake. I don't know. But inside of this, underneath of this bridge, they have the sanctuary set up over here in the top. That's a picture I have, and this little thing looks like an apple with fire coming. That's the Holy of Holies. And then they have a menorah, and they have the sanctuary is to train you and to teach you. See, these are training centers to teach you their way. That's what's going on in Saudi Arabia, the Abrahamic Family Center. Those are training centers. And if you'll notice, the Noahide laws that were signed into effect in the United States were called the Education Day. So it's all about retraining and training us in their way as the Gentiles. But we know that God has another plan. The true Messiah, is going to come through the Eastern Gate. And when he does, it's going to be a church for the Jew and the Gentile. And so it says in Ezekiel that he's going to come through the gate that faces east. He's going to come down from the Mount of Olives as the Messiah, the anointed one. And the Messianic Jews are an essential link between Israel, the culture, the country, and the church. And it says in Romans 1:16, the gospel of salvation to the Jew first and also to the Gentile. So Israel is the place where the gospel originated, and it's where it's going to come full circle. And we know that the true house, the true temple, it says, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, and it's going to be for everyone. And so it's going to be for all those who serve Jesus Christ in the end. So he will have the last say, no matter what your name is or who you are. So the warnings that he gave me was a call to the remnant. It is a call that we have one Lord. It is Jesus Christ. And whenever you see God, see all these religions use God. In God we trust. And I pledge allegiance in one nation under God, but they won't let you say Jesus Christ, because if they can't say Jesus Christ is Lord, then that tells you that they're not a part of the truth. And so then the other thing is to take heed. Don't get distracted. Don't be deceived by what's going on around you. It's easy to break people down when they're hungry. It's easy to break people down when they're in an earthquake and when they're in war or when they're sick, or to fool them with all these miracles. John Haller said that at his conference, they said, oh, with the artificial intelligence that we have now, we can make the lame walk. We can make the deaf hear. See, they're going to be able to do miracles because of the artificial intelligence that's out there that comes together as the beast system. Don't be distracted by that. Now, also, these are some original olive trees, that's been there for over 2,000 years, but the branches that you see and the sides that you see may not be 2,000 years old, but the roots are at least 2,000 or older. So we need to realize that the Jews are the root. They are the root that started with them. The Gentiles were grafted in. And so we have to realize that we are all part of God's plan. Just like the menorah as a symbol, of the Messianic Jewish remnant and the Gentiles, shining forth the light to Jerusalem to bring together one salvation under the new covenant. Isaiah said, I will give for thee a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. So the next steps from here out, I'm going to ask that you pray for the Jews, the Orthodox Jews, the Reformists, the Messianic Jews. Pray for the Arabs, the Muslims, the Hebrews, and the Christians, and pray for all the children of Abraham, that they will know that there is one Lord, and they won't be deceived, and that they know that they have a remnant, just like we do. We are all a remnant. We are all nations that can come together as a remnant, and that they need to forgive. Meanwhile, over here in America, be sure that you're keeping in the word, staying in prayer, that you know who you are in Christ, that you're strong in the Lord, and consider supporting a Messianic Jewish organization. I can't recommend one because I haven't researched them all, but pray about it because only 1% know Jesus. And there's Jews everywhere in Washington and in your cities, California, they're everywhere, and they don't know what it is to know Jesus. And it's just a whole field out there ready for harvest. And, Jesus looked out over Jerusalem and he wept. Then he looked down from the cross and he forgave. And this happened in Jerusalem. And that's what needs to happen. We need a time to weep for what's going on and what's going on in our world, and a time to forgive. So I don't know if you can hear this or not. Can you hear it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go. No.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know
It's
how to
an
get this to
internet
work.
issue. Yeah, it's just an internet issue.
Yeah. So as Mike said, I have a message on the video conference, Overcoming Deception. My session on there is called Voices from Heaven, and it's about preparing for persecution. If you're interested in that. And this is just my contact information if you want to reach out to me in any way after about any other topics that I touched on. But that's all I had tonight. Thank you for listening.
Hey, thank you. Let me stop the recording here.